Good day, and welcome to our special report on a critical geopolitical flashpoint with immense global implications, the Strait of Hormuz. For years, Iran has wielded the threat of closing this narrow waterway, a strategic choke point that is once again dominating headlines as regional tensions escalate. Today, we'll delve into what this recurring threat truly means for the world's oil markets and, by extension, the global economy. First, let's understand why the Strait of Hormuz is so incredibly vital. This isn't just any body of water. It's the world's most critical oil passageway, connecting the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea. Imagine a pipeline that carries approximately one-fifth of all global oil consumption. That's roughly 18 to 20 million barrels per day. That's the scale of trade flowing through this narrow channel. It's the primary export route for major oil producers like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Iraq, Kuwait, Qatar, and even Iran itself. The vast majority of this oil, roughly 75% to 80%, is bound for energy-hungry markets in Asia, with China, India, Japan, and South Korea being particularly reliant. Any disruption here reverberates across continents. So, what happens if Iran makes good on its threat and actually closes the Strait of Hormuz? The immediate impact would be nothing short of a severe supply shock. Oil exports from Kuwait and Qatar would essentially freeze, while major disruptions would hit shipments from Iraq, the UAE, Oman, and Saudi Arabia. This sudden removal of millions of barrels from the global supply would trigger an unprecedented surge in oil prices. Analysts predict Brent crude oil prices could soar to $120, $130, or even $150 per barrel, and potentially higher in a worst-case scenario. This isn't just about expensive gasoline at the pump. It's a fundamental blow to the global economy. Surging oil prices would unleash a wave of global inflation, making everything from food to manufactured goods more expensive. This, in turn, would weaken real incomes, dampen consumer spending, and could even force central banks to delay crucial interest rate cuts, potentially pushing the world towards an economic downturn. Our latest analysis suggests a prolonged closure could shave significant points off global GDP growth. Now let's consider the likelihood of such a drastic measure. Iran has a long history of threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz, especially during periods of heightened tension or in response to international sanctions. However, it has never actually followed through. There's a powerful reason for this. It would be an act of profound self-sabotage. Iran relies on the very same waterway for its own crucial oil exports, primarily to China, which accounts for nearly 90% of Iran's sanctioned oil sales. Closing the strait would choke off this vital revenue stream, crippling its already strained economy. It would also complicate Iran's ability to import essential goods and supplies. Furthermore, international law, specifically the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, designates the Strait of Hormuz as an international strait where the right of transit cannot be suspended. A closure would almost certainly provoke a swift and robust response from the United States, which maintains a significant naval presence in the region and has repeatedly affirmed its commitment to upholding freedom of navigation. Beyond the U.S., a blockade would also alienate key global powers, including China, and would likely bring other Gulf Arab states, whose economic lifelines depend on the strait, into the fray. While some Gulf nations like Saudi Arabia and the UAE have invested in alternative pipeline routes to bypass the strait, their combined capacity is limited. For example, Saudi Arabia's East-West pipeline can carry about 5 million barrels per day, and the UAE's pipeline to Fujairah adds another 1.5 million barrels per day. However, this is a fraction of the 18 to 20 million barrels that typically transit the Strait of Hormuz. For countries like Iraq, Kuwait, and Qatar, there are currently no viable alternatives for their vast oil and gas exports. In essence, while the threat of closing the Strait of Hormuz is a potent tool for Iran to signal its displeasure and escalate tensions, the full closure of this vital artery remains a highly improbable scenario for any extended period. The economic consequences for Iran itself, coupled with the inevitable international military and diplomatic response, make it a move of last resort. However, even the recurring threat and any smaller-scale actions like harassment of shipping or targeted attacks on vessels contribute to significant market volatility and a geopolitical risk premium on oil prices. As long as tensions simmer in the Middle East, the Strait of Hormuz will remain a focal point of global concern, a choke point that holds immense power over the world's energy lifeline. That's our report for today. Thank you for watching. Stay informed.